Claire's in-laws threw away all her 8-year-old's favorite clothes because they looked cheap. They were embarrassing, her cousin laughed. Her daughter burst into tears. Claire didn't cry. She did this. 2 weeks later, they received a letter and almost fainted. Claire was setting the table when her daughter ran into the dining room like the floor behind her was on fire. "Mom!" Her voice broke. "They're gone." Claire turned. "What's gone?" "All my clothes." Her breath hitched. "My favorite ones. The yellow dress, the sweater with the flowers, my jeans, everything. It's all gone." The room went silent. Not the innocent kind of silence. The kind that tells you other people already know something you don't. Her in-laws looked up from their plates with the kind of smiles you only see on people who think they've done something noble. And sitting next to them, swinging her sparkly shoes under the table, was the girl who had been trained since birth to believe she was the son. Her niece, the golden grandchild. Claire wiped her hands on a dish towel and knelt beside her daughter. "What do you mean, everything?" she asked quietly. "They cleaned my room," the girl whispered. Her lower lip trembled. "And now all the things I love are gone." Behind her, Claire's mother-in-law let out a theatrical sigh. "Oh, sweetheart," she cooed. "You should thank us." Claire's stomach dropped. "We just did a little organizing," her mother-in-law continued. "Some of those clothes you kept were not appropriate for someone in this family." Someone in this family. There it was. The sentence she'd been dying to say out loud for years. Claire's daughter wiped her face. "Where's my yellow dress?" Her father-in-law waved a hand like he was shooing away a fly. "Oh, that thing? It made you look poor." The girl blinked hard, as if the words physically hit her. Then the cousin, perfect little Haley in her designer dress, burst into laughter. "Finally," she said. "Someone threw that trash out. She always looked so cheap." Claire's daughter folded inward, shoulders curling like she was trying to make herself disappear. Claire didn't move. Not yet. "And," her mother-in-law added cheerfully, "if she wants her old things, she can go look for them where they belong." She pointed toward the door. "The trash." Haley clapped. "Oh my God, Grandma, yes! She should totally wear trash. It suits her." The room tilted. Claire's daughter made a small sound, half gasp, half sob, and that was it. She broke. Not loud, not dramatic, just silent tears rolling down her cheeks like she was ashamed to let them fall. Claire put a hand on her back, steady, calm. Inside, something sharp shifted. "Come on," she told her softly. "Let's go." She stood, took her daughter's hand, and walked out. She didn't look at the people who called themselves family. Not when they murmured fake sympathy. Not when they called after her, acting confused. Not when the cousin giggled, "Oops." Back in her daughter's room, Zoe sobbed into Claire's shirt. "Maybe they're right," the girl whispered. "Maybe I looked bad. Maybe I don't fit here." Claire felt something cold settle in her chest. "No," she said. "You looked perfect. And you fit exactly where you belong. With me." Zoe sniffed, trying to breathe. Claire brushed her hair back. "Do you want us to stay in this house?" she asked softly. "Or do you want us to leave?" Zoe didn't hesitate. "Leave." So they did. They packed quickly. Whatever clothes the in-laws hadn't touched, whatever belongings mattered to Zoe, whatever dignity they had left. Zoe's father wasn't home. He wasn't even in the state. So it was just the two of them. They walked down the hallway with their bags, past the polished floors and the expensive furniture, and the people who'd spent years reminding both of them that neither of them truly belonged there. Claire's mother-in-law was waiting in the foyer, lips pulled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Where will you go, darling?" she asked. "You don't have money for this kind of drama." Her father-in-law chuckled. "Without us, You're nothing. Haley smirked. Bye, cheap girl. Claire didn't answer. Not one word. She opened the door, stepped out into the night, and let it slam behind her. The air outside felt like freedom. They thought they knew who she was. They thought they knew what she had. They thought she was powerless. They had no idea. 2 weeks later, they received a letter and almost fainted. When people ask how Claire ended up living with her in-laws, she always wants to tell them the truth, one bad decision at a time. But it started long before that. It started with Claire, the girl who grew up with big dreams and a bank account so small it could have doubled as a rounding error. She wasn't raised in a bad family, just a tired one. Her mom worked in a clinic, her dad worked nights. Bills always showed up faster than the paychecks did. So she learned early that if she wanted anything in this world, not even the big things, just textbooks that didn't smell like mildew, she had to get it herself. She studied like her life depended on it. Maybe it did. She worked evenings, weekends, every holiday shift no one else wanted. She lived on coffee, cheap notebooks, and the kind of blind determination you only have when you're young and too stubborn to quit. And somehow, after scraping pennies and skipping sleep, she got into a good university. Not a fancy one, just good. But good was enough. Good meant possibility. And then came the student loans, the endless jobs. The moment she realized adulthood is basically sprinting with a backpack full of bricks while pretending you're not sweating. Still, she made it through. She graduated, exhausted, hopeful, and one late fee away from a mental breakdown. That's when she got her first job. At their company. Her future in-law's empire, built generations ago. Polished to look like old money, even though there were cracks under every marble tile. And her future husband, Ryan, was her boss. Not in a sleazy way. He barely noticed her the first few weeks. He was busy doing that rich kid thing where they pretend they hate being part of the family business, but also don't know how to leave it. But he was kind, quiet, thoughtful in a way that didn't match the rest of them. And she was ambitious, hungry, tired of being broke. They were an unlikely pair, the kind people whispered about. And oh, did they whisper. The first time his mother Caroline heard about Claire, she apparently said, "You sleep with the secretary, you don't marry her." Claire wasn't even his secretary. But accuracy was never really Caroline's thing. When Ryan and Claire did start dating, the tension in the office was so thick HR could have charged rent for walking through it. Eventually, it became too awkward, too pointed. So they moved Claire to a different department. She wasn't fired, just shifted. Like a stain someone tries to rub out but can't quite get rid of. Still, Ryan didn't care. They got married anyway. And that's when Claire made the worst decision of her adult life. She moved into his parents' house. Look, she had reasons. Real ones. Saving money before starting their own place. Trying to build a family connection. Believing people would warm up to her. She was adorable back then, in the way naive people always are. Because from the moment she carried her suitcase across their threshold, she stopped being a person. She became an inconvenience. A reminder that their son had married down. They commented on everything. Her clothes? Cheap. Her food? Strange. Her background? Well, she did come from nothing. Her voice? Loud. Every day was a new reminder that she wasn't truly part of their family. Not really. Not in the way that counted to them. And when Zoe was born, things got worse. Zoe became the second-class child the moment she took her first breath. Because there was already a chosen one. Haley. Claire's sister-in-law, Sabrina's daughter. Designer dresses. Private dance lessons. Teeth so white they practically glowed in the dark. If Haley wanted something, she got it. If Zoe wanted something, she was spoiled or asking too much. Haley had a princess bedroom with a chandelier. Zoe was given the old maid's room, tiny, plain, tucked behind the laundry, with a single shelf Caroline approved. Haley had birthday parties that looked like movie sets. Zoe got a cake Caroline selected, with half the candles because sugar is unhealthy. Everything was twisted. Everything. And throughout all this, Claire worked. Not in their company, because apparently her being seen might embarrass the family name, but on a side project. A small idea she'd nursed through long nights and early mornings. A business. Her business. They called it her little hobby. Caroline actually once patted her head and said, "It's cute that you're playing entrepreneur." Her little hobby started making real money. Not billionaire money, not mansion money, but real, steady, grown-up money. The kind of money you get when you build something that actually works, one exhausted day at a time. Her business wasn't huge, it wasn't glamorous, but it was stable, healthy, growing. Claire wasn't rich, not in the way her in-laws worshipped wealth, but for the first time, she felt financially independent, not connected to their charity or their approval. And that mattered more than she could explain. Meanwhile, their company, the proud old family empire, had been quietly sinking. Not that they knew. They never saw the late invoices or empty accounts. Their CEO handled all that. They walked through life assuming everything was fine because it always had been. So when the CEO started calling Ryan with small problems, temporary cash gaps, delayed payments, payroll issues, her husband asked her to help. Just once, then again, and again. A temporary favor became a pattern. A pattern became a habit. A habit became the only thing keeping them from collapsing. Claire didn't rescue them. She simply kept them from crashing that month. And still, they looked at her like she was one inconvenience away from falling apart. When Claire drove away from that house with Zoe in the back seat, the girl kept looking out the window like she expected someone to chase them. No one did. Of course they didn't. People like her in-laws don't run after you. They wait for you to crawl back. And they were going to be waiting a very, very long time. Claire took Zoe somewhere neither of them had set foot before. A luxury hotel with a kids' club, a spa, and the kind of front desk where they say your name like it's a brand. Zoe stared at the lobby chandelier like she'd discovered the lost city of gold. "Are we allowed to be here?" she whispered. It hit Claire like a punch. The in-laws had drilled that mindset into Zoe so deeply she didn't even know she was allowed in nice places. "Yes," Claire said. "We belong here." Zoe's shoulders loosened a little. Just a little. But it was enough. They spent the afternoon in soft robes, eating room-service pasta that cost more than Claire's old weekly grocery budget. Zoe kept whispering, "Is this real?" like she was afraid it would disappear. Claire didn't have the heart to tell her that real life would be messier again soon. But for right now, Zoe deserved this. Ryan didn't arrive until the evening. He'd been out of state on business. When he finally walked into their hotel room, he looked exhausted, confused, and already guilty. "Claire," he said, "what happened?" She stared at him. At the man who somehow thought "what happened" could possibly fit in one sentence. "What happened," she said carefully, "is that your parents threw away our daughter's clothes." He blinked. "Why would they?" "Because," Claire said, "they decided she looked poor." Even saying the word made her want to punch something. He sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, running a hand through his hair. "My parents are..." He exhaled. "They're difficult." "Difficult?" Claire laughed once. It didn't sound like a laugh. "They emotionally destroyed an 8-year-old because they didn't like her outfits." He winced. "Look, Claire, I'm not defending them. I know how they are. They don't think before they..." "I can't live there anymore," she said. Not yelled, not dramatic, just final. He looked at her, soft and pleading. "Okay," he said. "If you want to move out, we'll move out. We'll get a place. I don't want a war." A war. Cute that he thought they weren't already in one. They ate dinner quietly. Zoe fell asleep in a mountain of hotel pillows, finally looking peaceful. When Ryan and Claire were alone, she opened her laptop. There was no sugarcoating it. It was time. "I'm done supporting your parents' company," she said. His head snapped up. "What do you mean?" She turned the screen toward him. "They're drowning, Ryan. They have been for years. Your CEO's been calling you for help so often I could practically set it to a calendar. And every time you asked me to help. And I did." He looked like he'd swallowed a glass shard. "I didn't realize it was that much," he whispered. "Of course you didn't," she said, "because they never tell you the truth. But this," she tapped the screen, "this is the truth. Without the loans we've been giving them, they won't last 30 days. He stared, stunned, silent. "My parents," he finally began. "They're your parents," she said. "I know. And mine? They treated like trash. Me? Disposable. Zoe? Embarrassing. That's who I've been helping. That's who I've been keeping afloat." He scrubbed his face with both hands. "Let's just cool off," he said. "Let's not make big decisions tonight." Claire didn't answer. Not because she didn't have one, but because he wasn't ready to hear it. They tucked Zoe into the big hotel bed. They turned off the lights in the suite. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, pretending to watch something neither of them saw. They listened to the hum of the air conditioner like it was counting down to something. The quiet felt heavy, like a verdict waiting to be delivered. Then Ryan's phone buzzed on the table. He didn't look at it. It buzzed again. And again. Relentless. He flipped it face down, then pushed it farther away. But it wouldn't stop. 10 minutes. 15. 20. Finally, he stood abruptly, grabbed the phone, and walked out onto the balcony. "I'll be right back," he said, voice tight. He slid the balcony door shut, and Claire watched him through the glass. He lifted the phone to his ear, listened. Not just once. A long message. Then another. His shoulders tensed, his jaw locked. At one point, he pressed his hand to his forehead like the words were physically hitting him. It felt like years. When he came back inside, he didn't sit down. He didn't speak. His face was different. Not tired, not conflicted, not unsure. Something inside him had broken cleanly, decisively. He stood there for a moment, breathing hard. "Let's do it," he said. Claire's heart kicked. "Do what?" she whispered. He swallowed. His voice was low, certain, almost dangerous. "Pull the plug." She blinked. She hadn't expected that. "Ryan, what happened?" He turned the phone around. It was a long voice message. From his family group chat. A message they never meant for Claire to hear. His parents, his sister. Haley's laughter in the background. Talking about Claire. About how she married up. How she should be grateful they ever tolerated her. How she was pathetic and using Ryan's money. How Zoe was weak like her mother. How they let them live in their house. How they allowed Zoe to attend their family school. How Claire was lucky to have access to real money at all. And then the final blow. She thinks she can leave? She'll come crawling back. She's nothing without us. Something inside Ryan cracked clean in half. He handed her the phone like it burned him. "No more," he said. Voice steady, jaw clenched. "We're done." So they sat down at the desk, opened emails, opened accounts, opened every quiet little avenue through which they had been supporting his parents, and closed them, one by one. Canceled financial extensions, ended agreements, refused new loans, pulled the safety nets his parents had mistaken for entitlement. They didn't yell. They didn't rant. They didn't smear his parents' names. They just stopped. and the silence of that choice was louder than anything they could have said. Ryan leaned back, exhaling like he'd finally surfaced after years underwater. "I should have stood up sooner," he said quietly. Claire put a hand over his. "You're standing now." He nodded, eyes dark. "They're going to lose it," he said. "Oh," she replied. "I'm counting on it." But they had no idea. No idea how fast the fallout would hit. No idea how ugly his parents would get. No idea what they were prepared to do next. All they knew was this: they'd lit the match, and the fire was coming. It's funny how silence can feel like a threat. For months, that's all Claire and Ryan got from Caroline and Edward. Silence so heavy it felt like it had a pulse. Not a single call to ask where Zoe was. Not a text to check whether they were still alive. Not a message to Ryan saying his parents missed them. Just nothing. Which would have been peaceful if Claire didn't know them so well. Silence from people like them isn't peace. It's plotting. And right around the time she started to think they'd maybe crawled into a hole made of their own bitterness, Ryan got a call. Not from his parents, from Mr. Whitman, a man who had been their family friend, lawyer, and unofficial emotional janitor for at least 2 generations. He never called them. That alone set Claire's alarm bells off. Ryan put the phone on speaker, and the man's voice boomed through the kitchen like he was announcing a funeral. "Ryan, Claire, we need to talk." Claire looked up from the sink. Ryan mouthed, "Told you." "What about?" Ryan asked. A long sigh on the other end. "I'm hoping we can meet today," Mr. Whitman said. "In person." In person means bad. Lawyer in person means catastrophic. Zoe was coloring at the table, humming softly to herself, a sound that still made Claire's heart ache because it used to be so rare. "Can you tell us what's going on?" Ryan pressed. Another long pause. "It's your parents," Mr. Whitman said. "You should hear this from me, not from outside sources." Outside sources. What were they? A political scandal? "Can we talk at your place?" he added. "I'd prefer that." Ryan hung up and looked at Claire. "They're in trouble," she said. He nodded. "Big trouble." By the time Mr. Whitman arrived, clipboard in hand, sweat on his forehead, he looked 10 years older. He sat down, tugged at his collar like it was trying to strangle him, and said, "They're going to lose the company." Ryan inhaled sharply. Claire stayed quiet. "The debts, the unpaid invoices, the outstanding loans." His voice shook. "The CEO has been doing everything he can," Mr. Whitman continued, "but without the financial support." He stopped, shifted uncomfortably, then glanced at Claire. "The financial support you were providing, they simply can't cover basic operating expenses." Zoe looked up from her coloring book. "Operating what?" "Bills," Claire said, "meaning payroll, suppliers, the electric bill, their fancy office with the espresso machine." "Within the next few weeks," Mr. Whitman said, "they will be forced to declare bankruptcy, and because of the structure of the company, it's possible they'll lose personal assets as well." He looked at Ryan. "I don't believe your parents fully understand that." Of course they didn't. They never understood anything unless it sparkled. "I'm here," Mr. Whitman said, "because they asked me to speak on their behalf." Of course they did. "What do they want?" Claire asked. "To restore your arrangement," he said. She raised a brow. "My arrangement?" He winced. "Your financial support." Ah. So that's what the sweet tone was for. They didn't disappear out of heartbreak. They disappeared because they needed time to rehearse their performance. Ryan folded his arms. "They treated my wife and daughter horribly," he said. "Why would we help them?" Mr. Whitman closed his eyes briefly, like the headache was spreading. "Because this company has been in your family for generations," he said. "It was built by your great-grandfather. Your parents believe it would be a tragedy to see it end." "Then they should have treated it better," Claire said. His eyes flicked to her, surprised, then resigned. "I understand," he said quietly. "Truly. But I'm asking you to consider them as family." Claire almost laughed. Ryan answered first. "She is my family," he said, nodding toward Claire. "And Zoe is my family. The rest, I'm not sure anymore." Mr. Whitman sighed the sigh of a man who knows he's lost before the battle even starts. "They will never ask you directly," he said. "They are too proud. They sent me instead." He stood. "I've delivered the message. The decision is yours." They showed him to the door, and by the look on his face, he already knew the answer. A few days passed, rainy, gray, nothing special days, until it happened. A loud, enthusiastic knock on their front door, the kind of knock people use when they want to seem friendly instead of desperate. Ryan and Claire exchanged a look. "Brace yourself," he murmured. He opened the door. There they were. Caroline, smiling like she'd never insulted anyone in her life. Edward, puffing his chest like a wounded rooster. Sabrina, wearing a scarf worth more than Claire's car. And Haley, dressed like she was attending a fashion show for spoiled 8-year-olds. And they had a cake. A homemade cake. If anything deserves a horror soundtrack, it's in-laws holding baked goods. "Claire, dear," Caroline gushed, "we just had to come see you." Claire almost asked her if someone dared her at gunpoint. "We've missed you," Caroline continued. "Oh, and our sweet Zoe. We miss her so much." They poured into the living room like a well-dressed tsunami. Sabrina did the fake tear voice. "We were all just talking about how important family is." Haley stood in the middle of the room and announced, "I'm sorry," then added without blinking, "Mommy told me I had to say that." Beautiful apology, straight from the heart. Caroline nodded approvingly, like she'd just orchestrated world peace. "And we would love," she said sweetly, "for us all to start fresh." Sabrina clasped her hands. "Put the past behind us." Edward smiled thinly. "We're willing to move on." Ryan didn't even pretend to smile back. "So," Caroline said lightly, "do you think you'll be able to continue helping the company?" There it was. The real reason they came. Not for Zoe, not for Ryan, and definitely not for Claire. Ryan said, "We need a moment to discuss it." He and Claire stepped outside onto the porch. The moment the door closed, they looked at each other and said the exact same thing. "No!" It wasn't even a question. They walked back inside. Ryan spoke first. "No," he said. The shift on his parents' faces was instant. Sugar turned to salt. Honey turned to venom. Politeness collapsed into betrayal. Caroline's smile cracked. "What?" she snapped. "Do you mean no?" Sabrina's voice sharpened. "We apologized!" "You owe us!" Edward shouted. "We humiliated ourselves for you!" Caroline hissed. "And you're still refusing to act like family?" Ryan stepped between them and Claire. "You treated my wife like garbage," he said. "You treated my daughter like she didn't belong in your home. You never meant any apology you gave. This was all about money." They stared at him as if he'd stabbed them. "We'll disinherit you," Edward spat. Ryan actually laughed. "Disinherit what?" he said. "Your debt?" Silence. The kind that told Claire they realized she and Ryan knew. "We're done," Ryan said. "Please leave." They left in a storm of expensive perfume and collapsing pride. And though the house went quiet afterward, it wasn't peaceful. It was the quiet before impact. Because what Claire and Ryan had done wasn't just cutting ties. It was removing the last thread holding his parents' world together. And when that thread snapped, everything would fall. 6 months later, their world finally collapsed. Caroline and Edward declared bankruptcy. The kind that doesn't just take your business, it shakes the bones of your identity. They had to sell the second house, the lake cabin, the antique furniture Caroline used to brag about. And because of the debts they'd piled up, the court forced them to repay what they could, including the money they'd borrowed from Claire. Caroline cried when she handed over the check, not because she was sorry, because it hurt. Haley now goes to public school. Last Claire heard, the girl hates it. Apparently no one there cares who her grandparents are, or were. Sabrina works part-time at a candle store, a far cry from her socialite era, but she tells people she's finding herself. Sure. And Edward? He's a junior manager at a logistics firm. A junior manager. The man who once told Claire she was lucky to be in his home now reports to someone half his age. He ruined his company, so honestly it's surprising anyone hired him at all. As for Claire and Ryan, they're just living their quiet, peaceful, thriving life now. Their business is booming. Zoe laughs more these days, sleeps better, dresses exactly the way she wants. They've been no contact with Caroline and Edward since that day. And that silence? For once, it feels like freedom. So now the narrator turns it over to you. Did they go too far or not far enough? Let Claire know what you think in the comments, and subscribe for more.